Hey folks, welcome back to the Nerdcast, my second podcast with my friend Scarlett. How are you doing this morning, Scarlett?
Pretty good. Just drinking my coffee, waking up here.
Yeah, another day in METC, another day at our degenerate community college. So, you like D&D, right?
I do. I am a kind of a D&D newbie, though, I will admit.
Yeah, I didn't get into it till 2018, actually.
Okay.
I didn't get into it till my third year of college, so... Yeah, what do you like most about D&D?
I just like the character creation and kind of trying to figure out the rules and the world building and, I mean that new phase where everything's novel.
And broadcasting here, Drone Nerds the Round Table. We play D&D every Friday. Look us up. Yeah, I think character creation in D&D can be a great way to like explore yourself. Role-playing games are a great way of therapeutic coming to accept yourself. How would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just listening to another podcast the other day all about using D&D in therapy. So there's a lot of therapists who are actually becoming trained dungeon masters as well to be able to run these sessions.
Yeah, so my thing I use D&D for is a form of magic for me. Because think about it, we were talking about last podcast about magic, how everything you do is magic. Think about this, what's more magical than this? You're creating a fantasy world. You're bringing people into these characters where they can explore their innermost imaginative child, and you're helping them better themselves.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that? You're a magic person.
I mean, that sounds like magic to me, you know, self-discovery and exploration and certainly imagination and creation are part of it as well.
Yeah, so I watched a lot of Vice back when I was living in Madison a couple of years ago, and they did this video about how D&D and LARPing saved autistic kids from losing their lives. It's used as a form of therapy. I think I read a paper in The Guardian how D&D is actually one of the most therapeutic things for people on the spectrum.
I could see that because you get a chance to kind of practice social situations in a low risk situation that, you know, you don't otherwise get.
Yeah, and I remember the Satanic Panic. Everyone was saying, like, demons everywhere. D&D's a devil witchcraft.
Oh my gosh, Pokemon is summoning the devil.
Yeah, I know.
I remember that.
Yeah, I grew up in that kind of atmosphere.
Same.
But yeah, like, fantasy role-playing games have always been a way for me to, like... It actually teaches you good moral structure. And by morals, I'm not talking about, like, puritanical morals. I'm teaching, like, character morals, what choices to make. How do you feel about that?
I think so, and it also kind of balances to the chaos of life and that you have to roll dice to you know, see outcomes. So it also factors in the things in life we can't control as well.
Yeah. It's working. But I would also say, like, something that really speaks to me about D&D is like the sheer amount of like world building. Like, do you remember the OGL, the Wizards of the Coast, how they could like, this is something I loved about D&D back in the day. There's this thing called the OGL, which for 20 years, you could make your own products, your own D&D world, and sell your world online.
Oh, that's cool.
Nerdy capitalism at its best. It was great.
That.
And a lot of people are freaking out right now because Wizards of the Coast is backpedaling on this, and they don't want competition with their worlds, their official worlds, their products. So what you're looking at is like the death of creativity and trying to like corporations trying to like own the patent on literally dice and imagination is what we're coming to, you know?
Right, which is like, how do you do that? Because imagination is as limitless as people are.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing to do in D&D? What's your character?
So my character is half elf, half human.
Okay.
Ranger class, so I can talk
All
to
right.
animals. I get
Druid.
some cleric spells,
Druid.
which is pretty cool with how I've leveled up. You can like dedicate a character to a certain deity and then get cleric spells. So I went that route, and it's just really fun. I have a fox, an Arctic fox named UA that I can talk to. And
Have you ever DM'd?
No, I'm.
It's great. Become a god. Become a god. It's amazing.
I don't think I'd want to be a god. That's too much pressure for me. But yeah, this is actually my first campaign I've ever played, the one I'm in right now, so I've probably only had like 5 sessions of D&D ever. Yeah. Well, I played in high school, but the group I played with was kind of not great, so I kind of fell off and didn't play for about 10 years.
Have you seen Critical Role?
Not too much.
But you've heard of them.
Yes, definitely heard of them.
Respect the crap out of those guys.
Yeah.
They make good content. That's another example of the OGL. They made their own world, their own product from like... Yeah, it's great. And I like all these... Do you know how many nerdy celebrities play D&D? It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. You were telling me about celebrity D&D.
Vin Diesel and... there's a rumor, I think I've heard some playing places. Vin Diesel and like The Rock used to play D&D together.
I love that.
And then the reason they never do any movies together is they have such a different taste in D&D.
That is amazing.
It's a rumor. I've heard I'm passing on the internet, but it's funny.
A little headcanon going on.
Vin Diesel is a huge D&D nerd. Vin Diesel.
I love that.
Yeah. So other things I'd say, like, what's your favorite race in D&D? I could see you being a tiefling.
I don't know. I really jive with elves ever since my Lord of the Ring days.
Right,
I feel like I've got the connection with.
What do you think of the movie?
The D&D movie, it was wonderful. So funny. I mean, I didn't understand all of the rules things. I know people were like kind of critiquing some of those, but to me, it felt very on the nose and really cool.
They're capturing the actual experience of playing a D&D game.
Yeah. And just the character development I felt was really strong too.
Fat Dragon was comedic. Fat Dragon was comedic.
It really made you laugh. And it was serious and there was love.
And then there's that Olga, you know, and that was touching.
It was so touching.
This chick this woman who was like the adopted mother of this little girl.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, that ending, I literally have goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
Yeah. Have you heard of the original D&D movie?
Yes. It's so bad it's good.
It's very, very bad.
80s, right?
90s, late 90s.
Oh my gosh,
and then there was a D&D movie that came out during the Satanic Panic with I think what was his name? The guy from what is his name? He's one of my favorite actors. The guy from freaking Forrest Gump.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks did a D&D movie, and then
really?
You know what it's called? Mazes and Monsters. And it was about this kid is making fun of D&D, calling it a satanic suicidal cult.
Oh my gosh.
It's literally telling a story about this kid, this romanticized fake version of how it really happened.
Yeah.
He got hooked on D&D and went down to the sewers and played with demons and was running around in his own head.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I have not seen that.
But
now I know my weekend plans.
Yeah, things I'll say about D&D. Do you think it builds community? Do you think it can be used as a tool of healing magic, in your opinion? Mage to mage here.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I think it builds community, and I think, honestly, imagination is magic. The ability to believe that anything is possible and that you can make your life what you want.
Right.
I think that is what a lot of times in society right now, we're kind of missing that. We can feel sort of trapped and need that imagination to imagine a different future for ourselves.
Fantasy has always been a form of hope. Science fiction has always been a form of debate.
Yes.
Fantasy has always been the hope.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
I totally agree with
Science
that.
fiction is the question of why. Fantasy is always more of the whimsical hope.
Yeah, and I feel
dreams.
Science fiction also is a tool to kind of critique our society as it is and where it's going.
Yeah.
Where fantasy, yes, it like reminds us of what's important, what it's like to be human, why we're living at all.
Bilbo Baggins.
Bilbo!
Yeah, so D&D is great, but I will say my favorite fantasy setting is Warhammer.
Really?
My favorite, Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I gave you that Warhammer Elf book back for your birthday. You read that yet?
No.
Read it.
I don't read enough, honestly. I need to read more.
You'd like it.
Social media
It's literally hordes of monsters and demons attacking an elven Atlantis.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, D&D, my favorite race to play as is Dragonborn. I'm like a mercenary who fought in the Hobbit Wars. I carry a bunch of Hobbit skulls in my backpack. They were in the trees. They killed my entire squad.
Oh my gosh.
I'm an alcoholic veteran. I drink whiskey out of the Hobbit skulls. I keep some of their spines around as a back scratcher.
Hardcore. All right.
Just because I don't like hobbits. I'm sorry. I don't like hobbits.
And hobbits, I mean, they butt heads.
I don't like hobbits. I'm sorry.
Wow. Well, I don't know if we can be friends. Just kidding. I do love hobbits,
dwarfs to the wind. Diggy, diggy hole. Diggy, diggy hole.
A barefoot in the woods. Pipe tobacco. You know, good gear. Yes, hobbit life.
Good shit, man. Good shit. I mean, D&D. What do you think? Do you think has a future? And where would you see it going in the future?
Yeah, one weekend in LA, I found myself in an event that brings that fantasy into context, because I think that is like a really cool new application. But I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. I think our world needs it, and that community and that fun and that lightheartedness and imagination. I think we'll always need that.
Yeah. For me, D&D is always gonna be a form of escapism, and I have a god complex. I admit that. I like tormenting people.
At least you own it.
Like when people roll a critical 1 and they were aiming their arrow in the air, it fell down and killed the head of the Imperial Church in my world. So my world, like it's like a mix of Warhammer with D&D.
Yeah.
Like it's like a dark heavy metal universe.
Okay. Kind of Metalocalypse.
Yeah. There's literally hordes of work. There's like the horde from World of Warcraft. But it's been mixed with the Forces of Chaos from Warhammer, and they literally invade in massive droves and attack the peoples of the civilized peoples. There's race wars, fantasy race wars. Okay, there's like hatred between different species, and there's like all these like racial politics in my world.
Yeah,
like the Tark Empire, my version of the Holy Roman Empire, by the way, is like the Fire Nation from Avatar: The Last Airbender, but mixed with like a medieval like fantasy element. Cool. And they discriminate against all non-humans. The closer you are to human, the more you have rights in the eyes of their gods and the state.
Interesting.
And then there's Bristol Commonwealth, which is like the Alliance from World of Warcraft, but they're like colonial British, the colonial Victorian England, with like dragon cavalry and like armies of hobbits acting as musketeers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of like a little bit of a depiction of our world, it sounds like, in some ways.
Oh my god, have you ever seen the Community D&D episode?
Oh yes, of course.
Was that a good episode?
I thought it was pretty good.
Do you think it should have been taken off the air? How do you feel about that?
I
can see both sides.
I can definitely see both sides. What I liked about the episode was kind of that, like literally saving someone's life, who's been being bullied, and that piece of it I thought was awesome.
The other part we're not going to talk about.
Yeah, the other part, it's like, we can have issues with that, but
yeah,
I think it was kind of cool because it almost gave people that idea of like, can we use D&D to like help people and literally save people's lives.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah. In closing, the last two statements I want to make. How do you think D&D could reach more audiences? How do you think it could reach more people? And what do you think the hobby could do to become more relevant to people? Like, what direction would you take it if you're in charge of Witches of the Coast?
That's really interesting. I guess, it is kind of already becoming a little bit more mainstream. Like, I think the biggest thing is just getting people to try it and hear about it.
Yeah.
Because it can be kind of intimidating at first. Like, certainly for me, one of the reasons I didn't start playing right away, and it took so long, was just, how do I build a character? How do I learn the rules? And kind of that anxiety of just getting into it. So I think as long as you have, like, a really good dungeon master and a group who's willing to work with you and teach you, that might be the biggest hurdle for people, is just having a way to get into it, and maybe doing more like one-shot campaigns.
Maybe heavily focus and lean into the homebrew, I would say.
I like the homebrew too. Yeah, just have fun with it. Don't like stress about the rules, and maybe just introduce people with like a one-shot where it's like, we're gonna sit down for 4 hours and just play.
Have you heard of Baldur's Gate 3? The new D&D game that just dropped.
No.
It's a full-blown D&D game for the laptop and Xbox, where it's like it's an actual D&D game with computer graphics.
Oh, and is it live? Or are you playing with other players? Or
They're working on that.
Oh,
right
cool.
now, it's like it's in the same world as the movie, and you're literally carrying around a mind flayer brain slug in your brain. You're fighting hordes of demons, and you're on this adventure across the world. There's like everything you do, all your choices are based on your dice rolls.
Okay.
And those impact whether you're trying to sneak on someone, whether you're trying to kill a goblin, whether you're trying to pick a lock, whether you're trying to rally this tribe of orcs to your side. It all relies on the dice roll mechanic.
That's really neat.
I gotta get that. I will be streaming that, by the way. Look me up.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, so in closing, I love D&D, and I think it can be used for great good. I think it should be a great tool we could use to rebuild communities around the world, you know?
Totally agree. Totally agree there. I'm excited to keep my campaign going and keep playing myself.
Yeah. Well, until next time, folks. Stay sane.